Entertainment.
Welcome to Business Over Beer, where entrepreneurs, small business owners, and people passionate about what they do bring us their stories and their favorite beer. Hosted by Ben Surratt, Jonathan Kaler, and Jason Knope, it's time to get down to business and drink some beer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second biggest podcast in the Pacific Northwest. That's right, folks. We are still on the heels of those pesky Sasquatch hunters. But I have a feeling that this episode will bring us to the apex, and we will reign supreme in the Pacific Northwest. That's right. This is Business Over Beer. I'm your co-host, Ben Surratt. Alongside me is the man of the hour, the terror of power. Some people call him the Space Cowboy. Some people call him Touchdown Jesus. Some people call him Man Bun. Some people call him the Farmer City Monster. But we know him as Spartacus. Mr. Jonathan Kaler, happy Friday, my brother.
Happy Friday, Benjamin. What is that like? Is that like the Dubuque Sasquatch or something?
The Farmer City Monster. I saw it somewhere. There's a movie.
Let me guess. Look it up, right?
Look it up.
All right, I'll go look it up. Hey, man, we're here. We're back at the home base. We're doing recording on a Friday night. We're ready to drink beer.
Oh.
And speaking of things that make me feel like home, back in position to my right is the gift that keeps on giving. He is the gangsta of Hazeldale. Katie, are you down with the KNOPP?
Yes, you know me.
You know me.
Jason Knope, welcome to Business Over Beer, my friend. How you feeling tonight?
Farmer City Monster, I'm feeling pretty fantastic tonight.
I'm so
Sun's
glad.
shining. This is great. Great evening tonight.
Man, so we've been messing around with these cameras, right? We've been getting into this video podcasting thing. I mean, what happens if my computer crashes and we lose all these recordings?
Don't worry about it, man. I got you covered. I got Backblaze running on your computer.
What? What's Backblaze?
Kaler, it's funny you should ask, because this episode is sponsored by Backblaze. Knope and I had a really good conversation with them, and dude, what's some of the things that Backblaze offers?
Well, they offer unlimited computer backup for Macs and PCs at just $6 a month. You can back up your documents, your photos, music, all your data, and you can restore your files anywhere, even on a mobile app. If you're worried about deleting your files accidentally, for another $2 a month, you can add a whole 1-year retention rate on it. So they offer a full-featured, no credit required 15-day trial. You should go start today. Go play with it. Go to backblaze.com/bizoverbeer.
That's pretty awesome, man. I feel a lot better. $6 a month, really?
That's it.
Dude, I think
Pretty
we're covered.
sweet. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, back to business. Do we have a guest, Knope?
We certainly do. We have Katie Zink, founder and principal consultant at Social Construct Consulting. How you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Katie, thank you so much for joining us on Business Over Beer. How you feeling?
Yeah. Oh, it's so nice to get out of the house and meet some new people, IRL, and have this
Right.
conversation and drink some beers.
Well, cool, man. Well, we're so happy to have you on the program. We always like to start with your business, so maybe just give us the 50,000-foot view of your business and kind of what you're into.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to say I'm in the management consulting industry, in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And I can talk a little bit why I like to say space versus industry. But what I do is I go in and help organizations create their initial diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, specifically around how they're going to make cultural change happen in their organizations. And I like to say that my work happens at the intersection between employee activism and culture.
Awesome.
That is so cool. So we have a Patreon, a membership group, and we actually just had our monthly meeting with all of our members, and the topic of that meeting was culture. And we had a really great conversation about culture. So we're going to bring some of the things that we had talked about, and I can't wait to get into more of that because it is such an important topic. And then you layer in sort of the cultural aspect of what you do with DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we're so excited to hear about all of that great work that you're doing. But this is the Business Over Beer podcast. This is the beer portion of the program. Katie, we ask all of our guests to bring a beer to share. Have you brought us a beer to share?
Yes, Jonathan, I have.
Yes. I knew it.
Comes highly recommended, too. I'm very excited to share. I know GoodLife, but I have not had this one, so.
What did you bring us? Tell us about the beer.
So GoodLife Brewing out of Bend, Oregon. This is called the Sippy Cup Hazy Pale. And I was over in Koken Market, browsing the aisle, got there early. They have a lot of beer, as you know. Lots of great selection, and I was feeling quite indecisive. Keith came over, sure enough, and was like, "You look like you don't know what you want and you need help." And I was like, "Well, I'm just kind of teetering. I have a couple of things on the fence." And he talked me through it, and he's like, "Oh, so you do like good beer. You do kind of know what you're doing." And I had to kind of say it without saying it, you know. But he ended up making this great recommendation here from GoodLife based on my preference around hazy pales. So we've got the Sippy Cup Pale.
Sippy Cup.
So I have to ask, did you name drop us? Did you tell him you were coming on the show?
Yes, I did. I was like, well, I have to pick a good beer because I'm going to meet the Business Over Beer guys. And he knew exactly
Who?
He's like, who are those guys? I don't know what you're talking
Can't
about.
recall.
He was stoked. He was definitely excited.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're great.
Shout out to Keith. He's our buddy, man. And he's got a great shop over there. Go check him out. Well, Ben, as you know, I'm a huge pale ale fan. I love pale ales.
Yes, you do.
I am also a very big hazy IPA fan.
You are.
So this scratches both of the itches of the things
Yes.
that I like very much.
And as
so
you
I'm
know,
excited.
I love sippy cups. So it scratches a lot.
I was going to put that on Kaler, but you took it on yourself. That's fine.
Oh, you might want to take a picture of that. That's a Kaler
That's
pour.
a Kaler pour.
That's more like 3.5
little
fingers.
excited.
Almost 4 fingers.
Katie
That's-
is on point. Look at that. Look at that.
She's making it happen.
Prost. Okay.
Oh, the tinks. For so long we were on
So nice.
Zoom and
Yeah,
Ben would
it's
go
brutal.
tink tink
Tink.
tink tink.
Oh, no.
The real
No
tinks is
replacement
nice.
for that tink.
No.
Dink dink.
Oh, that's good.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
That's delicious.
It's fruity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very bitter. I wish it had a little more bitterness to it, but it's super smooth.
Orange citrus and tropical fruit.
Oh yeah.
I definitely get a lot of that tropical fruit for sure.
Juice yeast from Imperial Organic Yeast.
That's probably instead of fruity, it's juicy.
Juicy.
Yeah, like fruit juicy.
Ben, you
Yeah.
can eliminate the foamy mustache, too, if you just get yourself a sippy cup.
That's a good point. Road sodies.
Yeah.
So what do you think about it, Canoper?
It's good. It is definitely fruity. Unlike Kaler, I like the fact that it's not quite so bitter. Tastes good. It's refreshing to me.
Katie?
I agree. I definitely call this one a porch pounder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really easy drinking.
Oh, 100%.
That's awesome.
Because, like, you know, I like a hoppy, I like to call them a heady danker if it's got really a little more like dry hops. But this is just easier. And I told him today, I told Keith, I was like, I don't really want a super hoppy IPA today. I want something like this.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah, it's a great choice. It is. It's just.
GoodLife. I mean, they're solid.
I mean, I don't know what else to say about it other than it's
really good.
super easy to drink and it's tasty.
And at 6.4, I mean,
It's a little scary at 6.4.
yes,
A little too good.
Yeah,
for sure.
because we're not on the porch. Like I drink 6 of these on the porch and I'm feeling good, but I gotta.
You can always
gotta
fall
work.
asleep. You can fall asleep on the porch.
That's right. That's right. I can't fall asleep in the studio or else Ben's landlord calls and.
Can you
Cops
get
come and get
Kaler
me.
up again, please? This is like the 8th time.
Somebody go kick Kaler.
You see what I have to put up with around here? You guys.
Set yourself up for it.
So, Katie, I went to your website to do some research because, I guess that's required for our guests. But I saw something that really I was like, interesting. So my mom, growing up, she did a program, and it was called Passages to Success, and it had to deal with at-risk youth. It centered around it. And I would follow her from different conferences and speaking events, and she was fantastic. Today is her birthday. God rest her soul. Thank you, Mother. But the minute that I saw that, I remembered something that she would tell me on the way back from watching her event or going to one of her speeches. She would teach other educators. She goes, I do not like the word or the words at-risk youth. She's like, it's 2 negative things. It gives the kids who have that, they are already thinking, well, what's wrong? Why am I at risk? What's wrong with me? And it gives like this negative, it just has this ucky feeling to it with other people and educators. So, with being, really long question is, what made you get into that? And did you find it fulfilling or did it lead to kind of what you're doing today?
Great question. And I love hearing about your mother and kind of your memories of her work too. And I completely agree. And I love that you brought that up because I go over that language on my own profile a lot, thinking like, I don't like the way this sounds. And right in this moment, I need a better word, but I'm not sure what it is right now and I can tell you more about the stories of the children and the youth that I did work with along the way in very different contexts along the way. But I completely agree that at risk is completely disempowering, and it kind of places
That's a good word.
this,
Disempowering. Yes, that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
This victimizing sense. I did some work when I first moved to Portland, which was in 2014, with an organization called Raphael House. And they are an agency dedicated to protecting survivors of domestic abuse and domestic violence. And they use the word survivor, not victim, for that very reason. Because those women, those people, anyone who's gone through that, they've survived something and they're going to go on and live their life on their own terms now. And so to go back and rewind a bit, when I was attending the University of Colorado in Boulder, that's where I went to school, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was mostly there to be a ski bum, honestly. And my dad was like, just, pick something, pick a major. And so I did. And I ended up going into communications, which I really, really loved. I ended up sticking with. But then I started taking some different courses in sociology, and I really loved the social sciences. And then I started taking some women and gender studies courses and ethnic studies courses. That stuff clicked for me. I really early on thought, gosh, like, why isn't this required education for folks? Why isn't this more mainstream? Why does this feel so elective? In high school, we never got to talk about this kind of stuff. I was from the South. I grew up in Atlanta. And so I just really like fully embraced that part of my education. And then I started interning at an organization called Polaris House. I don't know if they're still around, but they referred to their participants in the program as at-risk youth. And these were kids who were in and out of, they were technically of high school age. They were younger than 18, so they really couldn't go off and be completely self-sufficient yet. So they were living in this residence because they didn't have anywhere else to go. And they were seeking folks to come in and support in any way. And I ended up interning there, and I became their nutritional advisor. So I helped them learn how to cook and learn how to grocery shop and kind of those things that you need to learn to take care of yourself growing up. And I ended up creating a cookbook for them, and I threw a barbecue for them, and like they all came and helped make a meal. And it was amazing. And I ended up getting to know some of the kids pretty well. And they basically were like, just you being here and showing that you care really just helps me with you being here.
So you said something that was really interesting. You said that you use the term at-risk youth, but you don't have a better word for it right now. Is that okay? So I think a lot of people struggle with words. You know, in this society with some of the cultural issues that we're all dealing with at different levels. I realize words matter, but for me, I feel like intention is more important. And if there is better words, then we should be helping each other find those words, right? But if I don't have a better word, is that okay? And how do you navigate that? Or what advice do you give to people who are trying to navigate that, who have good intentions, but maybe don't know what the right words are?
That's a great question, because language is evolving so rapidly, and I personally can't really keep up all the time. And especially in this day and age, there's so much conversation happening constantly, 24/7, and messaging going out with social media. Conversation is easier than ever. And so many people who never had a platform do now. And so I think in that case, if, like for me, you know, what I would do in this case, these kids, they're not really the ones who are expected maybe to come up with a better word necessarily, but maybe somebody with that lived experience, once they are off on their own and they have their own agency and independence, if that person who had that lived experience feels like there is a better word and has that language kind of leading that conversation, to me, centering people with that lived experience is the way to go when you're taking cues about language. And so it wouldn't be me who would make up the better word, because I didn't come from a background like that necessarily. But like you're saying, sometimes it's even okay to pause and say, I don't have a better word for this right now, but this is kind of what I'm trying to say. And I recognize that this is a disempowering word. Because even when there are better words to use, there's going to be somebody out there with lived experience of a certain demographic too that doesn't feel empowered by that word. A lot of people don't feel empowered by being called marginalized, but yet marginalized is kind of the accepted word if you call, saying that to people who have, not been a part of dominant society, dominant culture, have been at a disadvantage. These experiences are deemed marginalized. A lot of people are offended by that too. Yes, language is evolving. You kind of have to realize that linguistically, it's never going to be a kind of, yes, this is the best word to use in this moment, because it's going to change again.
Like I remember growing up with my mom. So, she had a lot of kids who were in trouble, and they were always the ones that always sent to the principal's office. And they weren't all black. They weren't all people of color. There were a lot of, in Wisconsin, there were a lot of white kids too in that. And so, for her, she would always, she goes, there has to be a different way. And that's where she created her book and her program was, I want to give them success. Like success is a great word. Success has nothing negative about it. And a passage is a way to get there. And so when she had like passages to success was her way of kind of shifting that there was such a cloud over some of these kids, man. And it was, and you know what I'm talking about. Some of these kids have very little chance when they're born. Like they're born in these circumstances where society has already kind of given up on them a little bit. And imagine how that feels for them.
But isn't that the problem? I mean, the problem is these kids are at risk. They are at risk for success. They are at risk for falling into the wrong group or at risk of having a harder road than those of us who are not at risk. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword under that sort of paradigm, right? Because it's not an unapt phrase, but it is very disempowering, and it is almost disrespectful, and it is almost condescending. And that's what I think makes this whole cultural discussion just so difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good point, because these things can all be true at the same time, right? There's not an either or, right? Yes, it's disempowering, and it's true, because a lot of these children are born into these situations on harmful systems that are designed to keep them at risk.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
That's an important part, though, to it, that if there's not a passage out, these systems that are designed to keep them in that spot, that's where the fight is. A big part of the fight is trying to change those systems,
Right.
to give them that passage to success.
Yeah.
Yes. And I love how she focused on success, because that's a value in my business too. The success of my customers is the success of me. And it's collective success. So we'll talk later about this word collective I like to use a lot, because everyone's version of success is different. These kids might feel like they're reaching a level of success if they can buy a home, if they can even pay their rent, if whatever their version of success is. And it's nobody's job to say, I deem you successful, right? It's their own version of success that they find their pathway, as long as there's that pathway and they have advocacy and they believe they can do it, and there are actual resources available, and there's barriers lifted. Then success should be the outcome, hopefully.
For sure. Yeah. One story before we continue is, I remember I was probably in 7th grade, and there was a student, and he would babysit me, Andre, and he was failing miserably, and his mom she worked all the time. She was a nurse's assistant or something like that, and she was gone quite often. And he would come over and he would babysit me, and he would watch me when my mom was at work after school. So she brought him through the program, and he was failing miserably. I remember that. And then he came to her with a C-, and I laughed that he got a C-. And my mom, she fucking looked at me and said, downstairs now. And he didn't care. Like, Andre didn't care. Like, he was cool. We were maybe 3 years different. So, I mean, he was maybe, a sophomore. I was in 7th grade. It doesn't matter. But she said he worked his ass off to get that C-. And what have you done? What things have you sacrificed? He sacrificed, listen, his peers were there in gangs. He sacrificed getting beat up after school because he was learning. Like, that is reality that nobody ever talks about when it comes to success. When you go to that, success to him was that C- and what he had to give up and what he had to sacrifice. So, like, when you said that, I just brought that memory to me. Like, whoa, I remember that, and I she laid into me, and after that, I gained respect for Andre. I love that cat. And my mom, I got so much more respect for her because she laid into me and she cared. You could tell she cared about him and the fact that he did so well. Anyways, story about that, about success.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's true. And it's because the problem is when there's a dominant culture, the same types of people are getting the same types of opportunities time and time again, and that privilege compounds over time. And so when people are able to actually get out, break those barriers and prove to themselves that they can make this achievement. And it's based on a standard that they can set on their own too. It's not up against some other standard created by a culture that's not theirs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
So I want to start shifting into the work that you do, because we're kind of skirting around this issue. But I want to start with culture. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I really want to start there. And culture is kind of this elusive thing. And I get the sense that you're trying with your business to try to make it a little less elusive, to make it something that you can actually be more tangible and that you can measure and that you can actually kind of put your fingers on and measure against it. So I want to start with a very simple question, not easy question, a simple question. What is your definition of culture?
And this is important because what we were just talking about before, culture has a different meaning, and it's important to differentiate because people that do what I do sometimes focus on a different definition of culture, and mine is employee experience. I think is the easiest way to let that sink in for folks. And I like to say workplace dynamics and just how values are operating in a workplace. How people are treated, how people can expect to be treated, how they feel when they're working on a certain team, if they feel like they can actually say what they want to say, if there's psychological safety. All these are elements of the culture. And I think that's somewhat of a newer concept for folks. I think in the last 5 years, I remember being in a focus group at my former company where we were talking about culture. And one woman was like, well, I'm a remote employee, so I don't really care if there's ping pong tables in the office or beer on tap. That doesn't benefit me. And it didn't get addressed. That comment just kind of slipped through this conversation. And I wanted to be like, well, that's not at all what we were talking about at all. Like having a lounge where you can drink beer at work is not culture to me. It's maybe a perk that some people enjoy, and it's not a bad thing, but culture to me is just how people move through their day at work, how they feel after certain interactions, what's tolerated, what's not, what's rewarded, and what people are held accountable for. And if somebody knows that they won't be interrupted in a meeting, that's a sign that the culture is a listening culture and values everyone's voice. So to me, culture is defined as the experience of working in a place.
But you brought up the word perk, which is a really interesting word. And I think a lot of businesses or business owners or leaders tie perks to culture. Do you find that that's true?
Yeah. I don't think it's separate. I think that people who are in charge of creating a culture, if it's been deemed by an HR representative or somebody in people operations to figure out how to make the culture attractive, a lot of people like those things. A lot of people like cornhole in the conference room. I don't know.
Hey, this is a family show.
Are they hiring?
Right? It works for a lot of people.
What the hell?
It's a better day than I had today.
Jeez.
And it's attracting certain crowds, right, to come work in a place. And so perks it's not like a smoke and mirrors kind of situation. They're good. I mean, I like kombucha on tap, just like any, white woman in the Pacific Northwest. But that would be a perk for me.
That's what Kaylor likes too.
Are you calling me a white woman?
No, I didn't.
He's got
that
the
come out of
hair.
my mouth. I just said you like it.
Easy.
And the bun.
Easy.
Sorry, Katie.
Don't make me look bad in front of our guest again.
I didn't say anything.
Sorry, Katie.
Not at all. It's funny, right? Because there's you can typecast the kind of people who like certain perks. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Is like, who are you attracting by the perks that you've got? Are you attracting a bunch of dudes who, a bunch of sameness because of the perks, or what are you getting at with your perks? How intentional are they? Is it the kind of perk that will actually benefit somebody who, has had different experiences and not the same advantages as other people? So that's what perks are not culture, but it's just kind of a different tactic than actually fostering an inclusion of a culture of inclusion and thinking about the way you promote and the way people move through the organization and talent mobility. I mean, that's all culture too.
Awesome. So your company is called Social Construct Consulting. Mm-hmm. And I've asked other guests this, but I'm fascinated by company names and why people choose their company names. So maybe just share with us, what was the impetus for Social Construct Consulting? How did that come about, and why did you name your business that?
Yeah. So it's so hard to come up with a name. Names are really, really hard, especially if you're trying to create a URL and domains and all that. And so I decided to go with my name as my website, but I needed an LLC and a name for that, and I didn't want to go with my actual name for that. I like Social Construct because it is what I do. Going back to my story about in school, when I was really fascinated with the social sciences and learning about my early learnings of feminism and things like that. All this is a social construct. Everything that's happening right now in these systems of oppression and inequality and inequity, and all of that is a social construct. And social constructs are bad and they're good. And what we have to dismantle is all a product of society. They're all social constructs. And so I feel like it's somewhat of a humbling thing to call my company, because people did this and people can undo it. And it's all the same kind of effort of creating things and dismantling them.
Well, I love what you said, that there's good and bad social construct, because I think there's a very much a negative connotation with the phrase social construct right now. And I think it's important that, you know what, it's not all bad. And I was having the same kind of feeling while we were joking around, that, you know, you can have serious conversations and still joke around at the same time, right? It doesn't. These are serious conversations and serious issues, but it doesn't always have to be doom and gloom at the same time. And so kind of pulling all of those things in together, I think, is an important part of having this conversation. So I love what you're all about. I love what you're saying, and I can't wait to get into all of the details of your business and what you offer to your clients and what you're offering to these social constructs and how you're trying to improve our community, because it's awesome stuff. But before we get there, Ben, you look thirsty.
I am thirsty.
I knew it.
Join us next week for part 2 of this episode. You can be sure we'll be talking more business and drinking more beer. Business Over Beer reminds you to always drink responsibly. Our theme song is Idiocracy by Christian Leo. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Business Over Beer, a TH3 Entertainment production.